Esta emisión con un acto bárbaro ocurrido en Dajabón y que fue filmado por los propios ejecutores. Se trata de la tortura recibida por un joven de parte de un grupo de narcos.
November 15th, 2024. A young man simply known as Marcos was kidnapped by a group of traffickers for betraying him and spilling secrets to the Central Directorate of Investigations. Although Marcos denied the accusations, no one was prepared for what happened next during the interrogation. Here are the most disturbing cartel interrogations caught on camera. July 26, 2018. Federico Avalos Sanchez, alias Elseri, walked into a trap that would end his life in the most gruesome way imaginable. But before he was killed, the cartel recorded the brutal interrogation he was forced through. Now, Sanchez was a low-level CJ&G operative who worked as a sicario and drug dealer, not as a kingpin. Unfortunately, he got kidnapped by Los Viagra in Sahuayo while on duty. Los Viagra didn't just want to end him, they wanted a spectacle. El Blog del Narco reported the video that captured it all, split into two parts, with the first being the interrogation, a chilling cartel ritual. But there's nothing routine about watching it play out. 2018. Michoacán was a region known as Tierra Caliente and was the epicenter of some of Mexico's fiercest cartel battles. This fertile land, ideal for growing and trafficking drugs, was a prize worth ending for. The CJ&G, led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho, had become a juggernaut since splitting from the Milenio cartel around 2009. By 2018, they're dealing cocaine and meth, even using drones and rocket launchers to flex their muscles. But they weren't alone. Los Viagra, tied to the Nueva Familia Michoacana, had their claws deep in Tierra Caliente, fighting to keep their meth empire intact. Cities like Sahuayo, a quiet rural hub, turned into battlegrounds where blood flowed as freely as the drugs. And it's in this violent circumstance that Elseri's story unfolds. Now in the video, we can tell that it's a dark room, maybe a shed, and Elseri's bruised face was lit by a flashlight, eyes wide with fear. His voice trembled as he recited a script fed by his captors. He starts by revealing his identity as Federico Avalos Sanchez and confessed that he'd worked for the CJ&G. He also revealed that he worked with a man known as El Garzón. Now the people he named are all part of the CJ&G. But then comes the bombshell. He names local officials, Rodrigo and Armando Tejeda, who were allegedly in the CJ&G's pocket. Now, Elseri would also claim that the cartel was supported by Sahuayo's current president, Rodrigo Sanchez. According to him,
they help us, along with Sahuayo's government, to commit our crimes. Manuela Cazuela gives us money, weapons, and opens up the government.
Truth or coercion? It's a damning claim, exposing corruption that fuels the cartels. And then, as if the stakes weren't high enough, Elseri was forced to beg, asking for clemency, so they could spare his life. He then warns the people watching.
No te apoyan, no te defienden, te dejan morir solo en la batalla. Cuando saben que te está pasando algo, te dejan solo. Solo ellos matan a gente inocente.
But Los Viagra sicarios weren't listening. They had darker plans, and the shift to the next part of the video takes us into a nightmare. Now, the second half, which surfaced widely in 2019, was even more horrific. In the footage, Elseri's still alive, but just barely. He's pinned down, a boot grinding his face into the dirt, and what happens next is almost too brutal to describe. One of his captors starts carving into his chest with a knife, slow and deliberate, like some sick ritual. Reports say Los Viagra tried to rip his heart out while he was still breathing, a power move to terrify the CJ&G and anyone watching. Elseri's screams are raw, desperate, as he cries,
"Ma, I love you,"
and mutters prayers between gasps. The camera captures every agonizing second, though it stops short of showing the heart itself. The message is clear. Cross Los Viagra, and this is your fate. After the execution, Sahuayo woke up to a disturbing scene. By morning, two dismembered bodies, one confirmed as Elseri and the other unidentified, were dumped in public. Alongside a narco banner, a cartel trademark. The banner didn't just say the Los Viagra cartel was responsible. It also threatened Sahuayo Mayor Rodrigo Sanchez Zepeda and Marco Vinicio, a former mayor running for office again. The video explodes across social media, spreading like wildfire, and it was covered by many media outlets across Mexico. July 14th, 2023. Reynaldo Fuentes Campos, alias Taliban, a 68-year-old Venezuelan drug trafficker, faced retribution by the Mexican Gulf Cartel. The video's ruthless, capturing how far the cartel's gonna go to protect its own. It shows a planned execution from start to finish. While the perpetrators' faces are briefly visible, they avoid clear identification. It all started when Fuentes entered the Dominican Republic, where he'd been living under the alias Miguel Fulcar, a false identity that allowed him to evade authorities. Fuentes, originally from Carúpano, Sucre, Venezuela, was no small-time dealer. This guy was a key middleman for the Gulf Cartel, orchestrating drug shipments between Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, and other Caribbean islands. His nickname, Taliban, came from his alleged connections with Middle Eastern drug traffickers, a detail that added international dimension to his criminal empire. Now, in the Dominican city of Banao, Fuentes reportedly controlled the drug trade in the Buenos Aires neighborhood, living a double life as a seemingly ordinary man, dating a prominent lawyer, and caring for her daughter. But beneath that facade, his world was one of high-stakes deals and deadly risks. July 17th, 2023 was when the trap was set. Fuentes was lured to a supposed cartel meeting, likely expecting to discuss business as usual. Instead, he's kidnapped, beaten, and bound with zip ties. The video recorded the following day shows him lying in a small boat in the Caribbean Sea near Martinique, bloodstains on his head, a white cloth around his neck, an anchor tied to his waist. The footage is haunting. Fuentes stares at that camera, perhaps aware of his fate, as voices in Spanish warn,
"Make sure none of our faces can be seen."
Then, in a matter-of-fact tone, another says,
"He has no way to save himself,"
before they heave him overboard. The anchor ensures he sinks into the depths, a grim symbol of cartel vengeance. The motive was a betrayal that cost the Gulf Cartel dearly. Fuentes had orchestrated a daring heist, stealing around 200 to 450 pounds of cocaine, worth up to $10 million, destined for Tortola in the British Virgin Islands. His scheme was very elaborate, dumping the drugs at sea, fabricating a story about a Coast Guard pursuit, then retrieved and repackaged that cocaine for sale elsewhere. But his associates turned informants sealed his fate. Veteran journalist Rafael Tolentino broke the story on the Dominican show Esto No Es Radio, revealing Fuentes' false identity and the cartel's ruthless response. The Gulf Cartel, based in Tamaulipas, Mexico, has a very long history of violence, evolving from smuggling alcohol during Prohibition to dominating the drug trade. October 27th, 2020, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, aka CJNG, streamed a torture video so horrific it became notorious instantly. I mean, this is some seriously disturbing stuff, and even Reddit users warned each other not to search for it. So the victim was known as Ghost Rider, a brutal sicario from Los Unidos, a group of smaller gangs battling CJNG in El Aguay, Mexico. Now, the town was a straight-up war zone back then. Both cartels were making it one of Mexico's dangerous places. Now, Ghost Rider was no ordinary thug. With a name like that, this guy's a monster, thriving on cruelty. He once ended a father and his young son, ripped apart their bodies, and then set the kids' remains on fire. This was a man who was simply pure evil. He also captured a young cop and slowly dismembered him, relishing the guy's screams. But on October 17th, 2020, the CJNG finally caught this dude. And now, they didn't just want to end him. They had to send a message, and they take him to a remote ranch, tie him up tight, and start the torture. In the video, which is way too gruesome for YouTube, this guy is terrified, but trying to stay tough. Here's where it gets sick. These guys inject him with adrenaline to keep him conscious because, he's got to feel every moment of agony while remaining awake. Then they poured alcohol on his face and set it ablaze. His screams were gut-wrenching as those flames burned through his skin. So when the fire died down, his face now a wreck, red, raw, and some bone exposed. They did it again. Flames now spread onto his pants. Despite the horrific sight, the CJ and G Sicarios laughed, cracking jokes about him looking like the Ghost Rider from the Cage movie. What made this even more shocking was despite losing his face and tons of blood, this guy stayed alive, begging for mercy. So they kept dousing him with alcohol and lighting him up until he eventually gave out. This video has to be one of the most horrifying glimpses into cartel brutality ever.
Esta emisión con un acto bárbaro ocurrido en Dajabón y que fue filmado por los propios ejecutores. Se trata de la tortura recibida por un joven de parte de un grupo de narcos.
November 15th, 2024. CDN reported a brutal act involving a young man known simply as Marcos, which unfolded in the Los Indios community of the Partido municipality. The perpetrators filmed everything, and honestly, it's hard to process why this guy had to go through this. In the video, Marcos is cornered by a group of traffickers, some going by aliases like Frank, Katz, and Mao. They were convinced he had betrayed them and spilled secrets to the Central Directorate of Investigations, or DICRIM. Now, the video shows Marcos visibly shaken, his voice trembling as he tries to defend himself. He was adamant, insisting that he never named anyone important or gave away any key details about their operation, like the location of a drug distribution point. But the traffickers aren't buying this. They kept pressing him with more questions, hinting at a Dick Rim agent who supposedly overheard Marcos' betrayal. It's chilling to think about how deep corruption runs there, with law enforcement tangled up in the same web as criminals. But let's talk about where this all went down. Los Indios is a quiet, rural spot, but it's exactly the kind of place where cartels thrive. The proximity to Haiti makes it a smuggling sweet spot. With poverty and a weak government, it's like an open playground for these groups. Marcos' interrogation felt like a terrible performance from the cartel members who were questioning him. And as the video plays out, you can sense his desperation. He's trying to talk his way out, insisting he only mentioned minor details. But it was clear his fate was sealed from the start. November 15th, 2024. Authorities found Marcos' body dumped by a roadside in Los Indios, with clear signs of strangulation. It's a brutal personal way to end somebody, and it shows its intentionality, like traffickers wanting to make an example out of him. This had to be a message to anyone thinking of crossing him. The fact that they recorded it, let it spread, as CDN noted, only amplifies the terror. It's like they wanted the whole community to know what happens when you step out of line. This case was shockingly similar to others in the Caribbean, like the Puerto Rican gangs indicted in May 2022 for using violence to control drug points. But what hits hardest is the human cost. September 2011, the Sinaloa cartel, led by the infamous Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, dropped a gruesome livestream that's still talked about for the amount of cartel violence shown in it. Now, the victims here are an uncle and nephew duo, Barnabas Gomez Castro and Felix Gomez Garcia. Let's break down what happened, why it's so horrifying, and what it tells us about how cartels carry out their interrogations. So Barnabas and Felix were like small-time players in the Sinaloa cartel, working as mules. Their job is to sneak in drugs from Mexico across the U.S. border into California. It's a dangerous piece of crap lousy paying gig, about 300 pesos or roughly $15 a trip. So it's barely enough to get by, right? Now, for many in Mexico's tough border towns, it's not like they have a real choice here. Poverty pushes people into the cartel's grip, and once you're in, there's no easy way out. One wrong move, like losing a shipment or getting caught by cops, can cost you your life. And that's exactly what happened to these two. So the video starts with Barnabas and Felix sitting shirtless against a plain wall, hands probably tied, with masked gunmen all around them. What's creepy here is how calm they look, No crying, no begging, just still. Are they drugged? Do they know fighting is pointless? This disturbing calmness makes the whole thing feel like something out of your worst horror movie. So the interrogation is short, but really damning. Felix, the younger guy, speaks in Spanish, warning others.
Think twice before you disrespect El Chapo. It's not easy being here, and you don't come back. These guys don't mess around.
You can tell he's saying what the cartel wants him to say, like it's scripted for anyone watching. It's not just about these guys here. It's about scaring everyone else into line. Then comes the execution, and let us tell you, it's brutal. First up is Felix, and the cartel pulls out a chainsaw. Yeah, chainsaw. The noise, the blood, the sheer horror of it. It's all meant to shock. El Chapo's crew loved using chainsaws because it's loud, messy, terrifying. Barnabas was sitting right next to Felix, close enough that chainsaw nicks his arm, but he doesn't even flinch. So after Felix is chopped up, it's Barnabas's turn. They switch over to a knife for him, and that ain't an accident. A chainsaw's quick and loud, but a knife is slow and painful. It drags out the suffering, making sure everyone watching feels the fear. The cartel's putting on a show to keep their people in check. Every move, from weapons to live streaming, is planned to spread terror. Now, here's a twist that makes this story even wilder. July 17th, 2011, just a few months before the video, Felix was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona for drug trafficking. This guy used a fake name, Paulino Gomez Garcia, but his mugshot matches the guy in the video. Here's the weirdest part. He posted $20,000 bail. How does a guy making $15 a run afford that? He had to dip into cartel cash, right? Maybe he snitched to the cops to get out. Who knows? In the cartel world, either of those can get you killed. If Felix lost drugs, misused money, or even talked to the police, it might be a reason why he and Barnabas ended up in that video. Loyalty was everything to El Chapo, and even a hint of betrayal means you're done. Meanwhile, the next video you're about to see is one where El Chapo took care of business himself. A video from April 25th, 2011 gave us a glimpse into a very dark world. This 5-minute nightmare, presented as evidence against the former Sinaloa cartel boss Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was a bloody chapter in a war between the Sinaloa cartels and everyone else. The video, which was leaked online in 2015, showed El Chapo calmly questioning a man suspected of working for Los Zetas. The victim, with his hands bound behind a pole, appeared nervous, as Guzman, wearing a baseball cap, asked pointed questions about operations in Mazatlan, a territory under cartel conflict. This man would reveal that an Emiliano, who had just been killed, was in charge of their group. El Chapo responded with disbelief and anger, confirming that Emiliano had been controlling Mazatlan. At one point, he accused this restrained man of lying and warned him not to test his patience. While what happened to the man in the end is unknown, it is speculated that he met a very terrible fate. Chainsaws aren't just weapons here, they're symbols of terror, used to leave an unforgettable mark. And the Sinaloa cartel didn't really hide their work. They dumped decapitated bodies in public squares across Sinaloa, ensuring everyone got the message, cross us, and there's your head. This wasn't a one-off either. Fast forward to April 2024, and police in Puebla, Mexico, stumble upon a very grim scene. 7 bodies, 5 dismembered by chainsaw, left on a busy road. It was the kind of discovery that was becoming all too common in cartel territory. Whether it was the CJ&G or Sinaloa didn't matter, the goal was the same. Maximum horror, maximum impact. These public displays are not about secrecy. They're broadcasting fear, making sure every rival, every civilian knows the cost of defiance. In May of 2011, another video exposes the torturous interrogation techniques used during the Sinaloa cartel war with the Zetas. The video was too gory for YouTube, they had to take it down. And it starts with a line that hits like a punch to the nuts, saying,
Do something for your country. Kill a Zeta.
The camera focuses on a man stripped down to his underwear, tied to a chair, and looking utterly helpless. On his chest, a freshly drawn Z marks him as a Zeta, like a brand of doom. Above it, a cryptic message reads,
Welcome, and to women and children.
Then the camera pans to his leg, where the name Lascano is scrawled. That's Heriberto Lascano, the Zeta's feared leader, a former Special Forces soldier turned narco kingpin. This man, likely a Zeta hitman, was about to pay a horrific price for his allegiance. The unseen interrogator, likely speculated to be a Sinaloa enforcer, was barking questions about a massacre in Acapulco on February 6, 2007. That attack saw 5 cops and 2 secretaries gunned down at 2 police stations. Witnesses say the endings were filmed, though the footage never surfaced. The man in the chair denied involvement at first, but the punches continued. It was at this point that he confessed, his voice trembling. You can almost feel his terror. But then it gets scary. A chainsaw's turned on, and what followed was a thing so gruesome, it's impossible to unsee. The video ends in a final blood-red message.
Lascano, you're next.
Now, let's pause and zoom out. Because this video isn't just about one execution, but about the chaos of Mexico's drug war in 2007. You see, the Sinaloa cartel and the Zetas were locked in this vicious battle for control of drug trafficking routes, or plazas, especially in northeastern Mexico. Now, the Zetas were formed by deserters from Mexico's elite airborne special forces, bringing this military edge to the game. But El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel was not backing down here. They're fighting all over cities like Nuevo Laredo and Reynosa, where billions in drug money flowed. The Acapulco massacre was just one minor fight in this war. And that chainsaw video was Sinaloa's way of saying, hey, they could outdo the Zetas' brutality.
Bueno, y la oficina en México del Alto Comisionado de Naciones Unidas para los Derechos Humanos condenó categóricamente los actos de tortura que fueron...
June 2019. A torture video surfaced implicating high-ranking officials in one of the most disturbing cartel-related interrogations you've ever seen on camera. This one kicked off on September 26, 2014, in Iguala, Guerrero, when 43 students from Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College vanished into the night. These young men, training to become teachers in poor, rural communities, were known for their fiery activism. On this day, they chartered buses, which is pretty common but controversial, to fund their protests, and were heading to a demonstration in Mexico. Now, something went horribly wrong. Local police, allegedly in cahoots with Guerreros Unidos, attacked them. Gunfire rang out, 6 people are killed, dozens injured, and then 43 students are taken, never to be seen again. Now, the government's official story, dubbed the historical truth under President Enrique Peña Nieto, claimed that the students were handed over to the cartel, murdered, burned in a dump, and their remains tossed into a river. But that narrative quickly unraveled, because too many holes, too little evidence, and a growing suspicion that it was built on lies. And come on, honestly, who could trust a story that seems so conveniently designed to close the case? So fast forward to June 7th, 2019, and this case takes a gut-wrenching turn when a video hit YouTube, showing a detainee named Carlos Canto Salgado being tortured to extract a confession. Canto was allegedly linked to Guerreros Unidos and the Ayotzinapa investigation. The footage is brutal. Beatings, psychological torment, the kind of stuff that makes your stomach turn. And the voice directing this horror was Carlos Gomez Arrieta, the head of the Federal Ministerial Police at the time of the interrogation. By 2019, he's serving as Michoacan's Undersecretary of Security, but the video's release forced his resignation. But it's even more disturbing that this is a man, amongst other government officials who've been accused of working with the cartel. The UN's High Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights had already documented 34 cases of torture in the Ayotzinapa investigation, accusing the government of relying on coerced confessions to prop up its shaky narrative. And now, here's the proof that the critics were right. So, who's Carlos Gomez Arrieta, and how the hell did he end up at the center of this case? In a June 2019 interview with journalist Azucena Uresti, he came to deny that it was his voice in the video and painted himself as a dedicated professional. He also boasted off his resume, Director of Special Ops for the Federal Ministerial Police, Head of Secretary for Michoacan's 113 municipalities, a guy who would risk his life for his job. But he also insisted that he never participated in torture, saying that he served society, not political parties, and believed in President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's fourth transformation to root out corruption. However, no one was fooled by his denials. Shortly after, he resigned. According to him, he did this not to hide, but to face the allegations head-on. On June 25, 2019, he files a request with the Attorney General's office in Mexico City, demanding to know the charges against him so he can defend himself. He claims the FGR was stonewalling him, denying access to the investigation, and leaving him in the dark. And you can't help but wonder here, is he a scapegoat, or is the evidence just too damning? The video itself is a portal into a nightmare. Ganto, clearly in agony, is pressed for details about the student's handover to authorities with vague mentions of Chilpancingo and classified exits. It's cryptic, but it hints at a deeper web of complicity. Police, cartel, maybe even higher-ups. The torture wasn't just about getting answers, as it fitted into a broader pattern. Cartels like Guerreros Unidos, the CJNG, and Sinaloa have long used extreme violence. Think electrocution, losing your head, even feeding victims to animals to maintain power. But what's chilling here is the state's role and possible involvement within the cartel. I mean, shockingly, this was just one of Mexico's struggles with corruption and cartel influence. More recently, on May 15, 2025, a retired judge, Lambertina Galeana, was arrested for allegedly concealing videos tied to the student's kidnapping, showing how even the judiciary has been tainted. Now, the government's insufficient response has only deepened the distrust. López Obrador's policy of avoiding direct confrontation with cartels, continued by his successor, has left many feeling that justice is a pipe dream. The UN's call in June 2010 to relaunch the investigation was a desperate plea, but progress has been slow. And when you see footage like Ganto's torture, it's not hard to feel that this system is kind of broken, maybe rotten, even designed to protect the powerful, while the families of the 43 students are left with nothing but grief. August 6, 2024. A video makes rounds online that allegedly captures the final moments of 6 men of Zitacuaro, Michoacan, a region long disturbed by the violent turf wars of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and its enemies. The footage was horrifying. We got 6 guys kneeling, hands and feet bound, staring right into the abyss of their fate. Each of them had received a gunshot to the head, cold, methodical execution leaving no room for mercy. This ain't Hollywood, people. This is the reality of Mexico's cartel-driven chaos, where power was asserted through terror. The backstory here was as twisted as it got for you. Posts on X from August 5th and 6th, 2024, painted a vivid picture of the events leading up to the massacre. The victims, according to sources, were allegedly tied to Conrado Corral Leyva, a former regional police coordinator for Michoacan State Civil Guard. Corral Leyva, it was claimed, hadn't just been a cop. This guy was a key player in the cartel game, accused of extorting his own officers and cozying up to a CJNG figure known as El Barbas. Banners hung in Zitacuaro's streets had publicly called him out, alleging he had taken bribes from El Barbas for protection. But in the cartel world, alliances shift like quicksand. August 5th, 2024, El Barbas, a CJNG leader, had turned on Corral Leyva, reportedly ordering the slaughter of these 6 men who were accused of stealing and selling crystal meth under Corral Leyva's command. The video itself, as described in posts on X, was a masterclass in cartel intimidation. The sicarios, under El Barbas's orders, had forced the victims to confess with their supposed crimes, implicating Coral Leyva before delivering the fatal shots. 2 of these guys had been identified, allegedly small-time robbers caught in the wrong web. Man, the CJNG is a ruthless Mexican cartel, and they wouldn't just kill, but stage their executions to cement their dominance. Michoacan's a hotspot in their feud with the Sinaloa cartel, a battleground where these kind of displays are just too common. As noted in a June 3, 2025 CBS News report on the region's escalating violence. What makes this case so disturbing wouldn't be just the gore, it was the betrayal. Coral Leyva, a public servant sworn to protect, had allegedly become an inside man to the CJNG, only to be double-crossed. It's January 22, 2019, and this haunting video shocks the courtroom during El Chapo's trial of the century. The footage, shot way back in 2008, captures the interrogation of Israel Rincon Martinez, alias El Guacho, a former Sinaloa cartel sicario who made the fatal error of switching sides. In this video, the traitor is bloodied, beaten, handcuffed to a pillar in a warehouse on a ranch called Las Cañitas near Culiacan, Sinaloa, owned by Damaso Lopez Nunez, known as El Licenciado. His shirt is filthy, stained with blood, his face swollen, and his voice is shaken as he's confessing under unimaginable pressure. In this room was none other than El Chapo himself, his sons Jose Alfredo and Ivan Archivaldo Guzman Salazar, aka Los Chapitos, and El Licenciado, who later turned on his compadre to testify against him. But this is a scene that feels like it's ripped from my worst nightmare, and it only gets darker when you understand the context. What led to this violence can be traced back to January 2008, when tensions between the Sinaloa cartel and their former allies, the Beltran Leyva brothers, boiled over. The spark was ignited when Alfredo Beltran Leyva, alias El Mochomo, was arrested in Culiacan, and the Beltran Leyvas were convinced El Chapo had betrayed him to the authorities. This betrayal fractures an alliance, igniting a vicious turf war that turns Sinaloa into a bloodbath. And El Guacho, he's caught in the middle. Once a loyal sicario for El Chapo, he's now summoned to a meeting in Cuernavaca, Morelos, by Arturo Beltran Leyva, El Barbas. Arturo didn't mince words on this one. He demanded to know whose side he was on. Under pressure here, El Guacho admits he's been coerced into working for the Beltran Leyvas, even tasked with hiring hitmen to take out El Chapo, his sons, and key allies like Ismael El Mayo Zambada. And that choice marked him for death. August 2010 brought El Guacho's downfall. He's assigned to assassinate Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, but his hit squad botched the job, mistakenly ending Marcial Fernandez, the son of a Sinaloa cartel sicario. Oh, that mistake unleashed a relentless manhunt, and soon El Guacho was captured. The video shows the horrifying consequences. Electric shocks to the ears, teeth ripped out, and according to El Licenciado's testimony, a doctor on hand to bring him back to life when he couldn't take the pain, so the torture continues. Ovidio Guzman Lopez, another one of El Chapo's sons, allegedly beat him with a baseball bat, furious over the attempt on his brother's life. The interrogation ends with El Guacho's murder, ordered by El Chapo. And by October 2010, his body was dumped and discovered in Navolato, Sinaloa.